What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Acura Audio Garage. Today we continue the DIY Pro Series. We're going to be upgrading the subwoofer and the factory amplifier in our second generation Acura TL. So this video is going to cover a couple different scenarios. You want to watch it in its entirety so you can make a decision on what you want to do. First scenario, we have the factory subwoofer. We just want to find a replacement for it. Just plug and play replacement. The second scenario, we're going to keep the factory amplifier and we're going to figure out which subwoofer works best with the factory amplifier. Third scenario, we're going to upgrade the factory amplifier and then we're going to pick a subwoofer that sounds the best with that new upgraded amplifier. So as always, I'm going to ask that you like the video, subscribe. It takes time to put these things together and bring you this information. Also, just to mention again, the point of the DIY Pro Series is to get you the most information in the least amount of time as possible, and also to provide you the ability to join the channel for extended help. So you might have a scenario where you're stuck, you might need some help. You'll see some of the perks to being a part of the channel is proprietary support. You also get some discounts. There are other things included. Feel free to check out the perks listed below. But I'm going to jump into getting the factory subwoofer out, and then we'll cover some of the steps that we'll need to take to actually replace it. That's the factory subwoofer cover. Before you can pull this cover off, we just need to undo some stuff in the trunk. So in the trunk, if you come up right under here, you can see two lights. We just have to unscrew these. So it's come down like so. I'm going to unscrew the other one now, which is right here. Once they're both off, now I can pull that panel off. So I'm going to go to the other side and do that. So you could probably get this cover off with your hands, but just to be safe, I'm going to use a pry tool. But all you want to do first is get this panel off, so you can kind of slide it up, stick your finger in here, and get this out of there like so. Now we can begin to pry up. So I'm going to get started on one of the sides. There's clips here and here. I actually think I released them both already. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up and then back, and now expose the subwoofer. Let me show you the clips I'm talking about. So first we had to release the brake lights from here. Then these are the clips that we popped off with our pry tool. And lastly, you have to slide these forks out from its location like so. So once this is off, we have 4 8mm screws that we have to get off, and then we can go about replacing our subwoofer. So we just get our last one out. So 4 8mm bolts, pull the last one out. Here are what your bolts slash screws look like, and then this might be stuck on there a little bit, so you just want to rattle it up. Then you'll have 2 connections. They're just spade terminals, so all you have to do is just pull them out. So pull that one out, pull that one out, and you can see there are the spade terminals. It does have a zip tie. Our zip tie was cut, so now we can pull our subwoofer out. All right, so here's our subwoofer. As you can see, it's an untraditional shape. So most subwoofers are just round. They don't have ears like this. And then it's this weird pattern where half the subwoofer is above the mounting plate and half the subwoofer is below. It's very slim. So finding an exact replacement is tough. The reason why it's so slim, is because this bracket right here gets in the way if you try to install a proper subwoofer. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our flush cutter. We're actually going to trim this off. So this bar is actually pretty important. Let me show you what it holds. So this bar right here holds these tensioners. These tensioners are so that when you open your trunk, it feels like almost effortless. If you were to remove those tensioners, then you'll feel the full weight of opening your trunk. So all we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut it off, and we're kind of gonna let it hang here. It's gonna shift a little this way, but as long as these are kind of where they're supposed to be in this clip, we should be fine. We shouldn't have any issues with the trunk, you know, being heavier than it normally is. All right, so we got the subwoofer out. We're trying to make a decision on what subwoofer to put in there. If you don't feel comfortable cutting, you don't have the tools to cut, upgrading your subwoofer is going to be very limited, but we did find something that will work. So we have this Scar speaker. This is really a full range speaker, but it will play down to 80 hertz. And this is more of a mid-range in your car. Like, it plays bass, don't get me wrong, but the signal back there goes up to about 800, 1000 hertz. So this is playing more of a mid-bass roll, playing from like 80 hertz, maybe 40 hertz up to around 500 is probably where it's getting its most. And this can kind of fill that same range. So we're gonna put this first, see how it sounds. And again, this is an upgrade where you won't have to cut. The only thing is, because of the odd shape, if we just throw this down in the hole, there's no place to mount it. So I don't know if you saw that. I hope that caught that. That was completely accidental. So if you go to mount this without anything else, it's just too big and it just falls right through. So you need a spacer or adapter or something to help you mount the new sub. And we have those available. You can find them on our store, AcuraAudioGarage.com. So here's that spacer. It'll you know, be the same shape as a factory sub, and then allow you to put the new speaker onto it. We have found that there are certain speakers that don't require this. So if you go with this sub or that sub, I'll show you later on in the video, but you don't need the spacer, but they still mount kind of weird. The other thing we thought about is, hey, this is really a 9-inch sub, not an 8-inch sub. So we're like, what if we put a 10-inch sub in there? But if the 10-inch sub is too big, it doesn't fit correctly. If you were to cut, maybe you could fit one, but we're looking for an easier install. So we're gonna focus on this speaker. So I'm gonna get this speaker mounted, take a listen to it and see how it sounds. So you can see we have our terminals connected. It's a little short, but you can make it work. You're just gonna have to cut the ends off, strip it back, and then make room for the new terminal. So now I'm just gonna mount it and then we'll listen to it. After listening to it some, I wouldn't consider this an upgrade. This speaker sounds great, but because it's a 4 ohm driver, so let me show you what model number it is. This is the Scar speaker we were looking at. So you can see it has a impedance of 4 ohms, and here's the model number in case you want it. The problem is that speaker has so much more resistance that it doesn't sound as loud as the factory speaker did. So we're gonna look at the resistance of this compared to the resistance of that. So if I put these both down, I believe this should get to about 0.7 ohms. So 0.5, so we're at half an ohm. So this has speaker right here, the one in the car now has 8 times more resistance than this speaker. So we lost a lot of volume. If you were gonna amplify this with something else, it would make sense. But as an upgrade for this subwoofer, I recommend leaving this in place. So now if you are sticking with us, it means you're going to be cutting the metal back there so we can fit any one of these subs. We're gonna try Pioneer sub next. It's going to work the best with that factory amplifier, so this should sound really good. I'm just gonna get the cutting out of the way. Again, I'm gonna use my flush cutter. I'll try to get some on video, but it's just cutting that metal bar back there. So again, we're gonna be cutting this metal bar right here and right here. I'm just gonna pull the speaker out before we do so. Cut the bar. You can see it's kind of come down out of the way. We're just gonna unclip this now, and then we're gonna clean this up just so we can't get scratched on it. As you can see, we cut the metal down. Let me get these. The blue tape you see, as we filed these down, they were still kind of sharp, so we just threw some blue tape on them so that if we're ever working back there, when you slide our hand around, it doesn't automatically get cut. The tape will protect you a little bit. You can use whatever you want or not put anything out there at all, but just a protective thing for us. Here is the metal we cut. Pretty easy to cut with our tool. Our flush cutter is from Harbor Freight. It wasn't that expensive, and it just cut right through it. It's pretty thin metal, so it should be relatively easy. So now we can finally mount our new sub. So we're gonna unbox this Pioneer and get it mounted on the rear deck. So earlier in the video we talked about how the factory sub is more of a mid-range. This Pioneer sub can play from 20 hertz to 1.4 kilohertz, so it can act as the same as this speaker, so it can fill the role. The thing you can see, it's definitely a lot thicker and the mounting is different, but this Pioneer has a bigger overall rim, so when I put it to match up, so this one shouldn't fall through the hole, it should match up. We shouldn't need a bracket to mount this. It's going to be tricky, but we should be able to pull it off. The only thing is, this is a dual voice coil sub, so we have to just pre-wire it so we're ready for the dual voice coil setup. So I'm gonna wire it first and then we'll bring it in the car. Alright guys, so I was wrong. So it doesn't fall through the gap, but it is gonna require some kind of spacer to make it fit properly. What you just saw / heard is our Pioneer sub. That thing slaps. It's worth the upgrade. You are gonna need the bracket. You can try to make it work without the bracket, but just it's worth it. It sounds good. You are gonna need to sound in, so there is some rattle back there. I don't know if you can see on video, but when it plays that low bass, it causes that rear deck to rattle. So the Pioneer sub, definitely worth it. It's a 1 ohm final impedance, so it's real close to the half ohm that this was, and it just sounds awesome. So if you're looking to upgrade that sub, you want something that's plug and play simple, that Pioneer sub is going to be your best bet with the factory amplifier that's in this car. You're going to want to sound deaden and then cut that metal bracket out. Now we're going to look at our other two options. So this kicker sub is the sub that pairs the best with our plug and play amp, so that's why we have it on the table. We're going to mount that next, then we're going to upgrade the amp. Then we have this Infinity Flex sub that you can get down to 1 ohm as well, and it's adjustable. It has this weird mounting mechanism where I can almost mimic the shape that this was. I'll show you that in a second. So maybe you could use this sub without cutting that metal bar, but we'll find out in a second. So we can release this latch. We can release this latch and remove the mounting mechanism from our sub, and then it just leaves us with the sub. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the factory subwoofer here, and we're gonna try to get the mount to sit at the same level as this, and we'll see if it'll fit in that factory location. Alright guys, so after messing with it for a bit, there's no way to get it to be the same height down and up. So we're just gonna see if this even fits in our Infinity sub fits, but the cover won't fit over it, and also the screw points, you'd have to drill new screws. This Infinity sub's also being discontinued, so I don't recommend it overall. It's just gonna make your installation harder, but if you want to be that guy with the Infinity sub, then you can make it work. We're listening to that kicker sub. The kicker sub sounds good. I would say it's on par with the factory subwoofer, a little better. If your subwoofer's blown, definitely an upgrade, but that Pioneer sub we looked at earlier is really your best sub upgrade for the factory amplifier. So now we're gonna put in our aftermarket amplifier, which is gonna work best with that kicker sub. So we have our kicker sub installed. That kicker sub you can find on our store. We also just wanted to show you the JBL sub. This is a 4 ohm sub, so it won't work the best in our application, but if you want to use it for yours, you're running a different amp, etc., it will fit back there. It can be used. So to get our factory amplifier, we don't need to get it out, we just need to get to it. So let me pop the trunk open. To get to the factory amplifier, it's back in that corner. So what you need to do is you need to pull this cover off first. This cover has one clip here that you need to pull out. I'll show it to you. And it has 4 screw down tie downs. So those most likely aren't going to come off. They're going to be rusted as hell. So you can just pull over it. It's going to open up your holes some. Or if you want, you can kind of DW40 and get them out. Here's the clip that you needed to pull out so you can release it. Then you have the trunk lid. This cover here, it has 4 screw terminals. So your screw terminals go in like so. So what you have to do is, if you just start turning them, sometimes they don't come out. You got to put pressure on the side with a screwdriver, and then turn it, and then it'll come up. You get all 4 up. This will just release. Then you have your jack here. You just turn to shorten it, and then you can pull it out. This pocket here pulls right out. It just has 2 pins that go in, so you can just apply pressure up, pull it out. Then you have a screw terminal here, a screw terminal here, a screw terminal here, and a couple more regular clips. You just pop those out. Then you're able to turn this out this way. You don't need to pull it all the way out. We're going after the factory amplifier. I don't know if you can see it, but it's back there. So I'm just going to disconnect the connector from it, and we'll get to work. You reach in deep, and you're able to unplug it. Here's a connector. Now we're going to plug our amp up. So here we have our plug and play amp all set up. It uses the same connector that's there. It has an RCA feed right in it. Goes straight to the amp, and then our power and our sub are right there. You also do get a bass knob if you want a bass knob to run up to control the bass, and that plugs into here. So we're gonna go plug this in the car, see how it sounds. Listened or saw the kicker sub with the plug and play amp in action. This thing slaps. It's a great upgrade in bass. It rattles this entire rear deck, so you're gonna have to pop these panels off and sound in. We're gonna do a more thorough installation video. This is just a showcase on the subwoofer. We just decided to throw the amp in here as well. Let me show you the amp in the trunk. So you can see it's just sitting there. You could actually take 4 screws and screw it down somewhere, but it's, for our demo purposes, it's fine there. The harness reaches all the way back. You just plug everything in and you're all set to go. So you might be asking yourself, hey, can I use that amp with another sub? So let's say I don't want to replace this 8-inch sub, I want to run a box. So that amp is 100 watts at 4 ohms, 200 watts at 2 ohms. So if you got a nice 2 ohm subwoofer, a single 12, single 10, you could throw it back here and get a lot of bass out of that thing. The amp again comes with a bass knob, so you can adjust the knob, the bass on the fly, and it's just a solid little amp. Alright guys, so our cover is back on, and we're just gonna listen to one more time, see how that, if there's any more rattle.
Plus I'm struggling trying to find the keys to my car, 'cause I be going hard.
That's gonna wrap up this video. We're gonna continue the DIY Pro Series with a subwoofer installation. So here we upgraded the factory sub. Next video, we're gonna put in a nice big box, let you know what fits back there, and run some power wire through the firewall, so you can know how to do that. And then I think that's gonna wrap up the DIY Pro Series for this car. Unless there's another video you'd like to specifically see, we covered the speakers, we did the radio, we did the factory sub now. We'll do an aftermarket sub coming soon. So make sure you stay subscribed. We're going to be moving forward from the 2nd generation to the 3rd generation Acura TL, so stick around, make sure you're subscribed. If you're looking for any of the products we use, so if you need the bracket to upgrade your sub, if you're looking for the plug and play amp with the kicker sub, you can find all this, even the Pioneer sub, on our website. Bracket should be available. You could order it now, but it probably won't ship from like a week, 2 weeks from now, just because they need to all get made. So if you're looking for any other stuff to upgrade your radio, your speakers, or anything in your Acura, make sure you check out AcuraAudioGarage.com. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I know I'm sweaty, it's hot, it's like 90 degrees in New York, who knows. But I appreciate you watching. Make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, share it, anyone that could benefit with this information. And again, I thank you for watching.